Hello and welcome to the final game of this stage of the World Championship in Through the Ages. After my win in the last three-player game, it is now secure that I will be able to move on to the finals of this tournament, which of course I'm very happy about. For Airren, with losing the three-player game, it sadly means though that he now doesn't have any chance any longer to move on to the next stage. So the two-player game that we are seeing today between me and Airren won't have any consequences for the standings of this tournament, but this game, of course, still counts towards the clicker rating, where Airren had the number one spot for quite a long time, and maybe it could potentially be a deciding game on who takes the lead in the clicker rating after the next update. So that game, of course, still is quite important, and also, of course, for most parts of the game, it was not clear that this game won't have any consequences for the standings. So both players, of course, still took this game very seriously. Alright, and now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game I'm in the first position, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders, and as always in two-player games it is very important to take a look at the culture leaders. And we can see that there are maybe not that many culture leaders in there, but there's one very prominent one with Bach. And there's also Gaudi, so there are two very decent culture leaders in H2. In H3, however, there's no theater leader, and there's also no Hollywood. At least the internet is there, so not a big culture synergies, but definitely some prominent ones, especially, of course, with Bach being there. Apart from that, there is also Pierre. There are some science leaders with Einstein, Steve Jobs, and Marie Curie. There's also the Red Cross available and Mandela. In H2, there's no ocean liner service, also no Suez Canal, but the Harvard College is there, as well as the railroad and the Statue of Liberty. We have James Watt, however, he is maybe not that great in two-player games. Newton is there as a strong economic leader, and also two military action leaders. Napoleon could maybe potentially be a nice counter against a potential culture strategy. In H1, we have one military action leader. We also have Genghis Khan and Barbarossa to help with the strength. Columbus is there maybe as a nice transitional leader. Gutenberg can be very strong in two-player games. Michelangelo together with the Machu Picchu maybe could also have some very nice potential. And also what we maybe should mention is that the Acropolis could potentially come out of the deck, because that might already have influenced the decision in my first turn. Because here I think it is a decision between either grabbing the Engineering Genius or the Pyramids, and as you know I like the Pyramids quite a lot, and I also like the Pyramids in two-player games quite a lot. And I think it could also be totally fine to take the Pyramids here, but I just felt like if I take the Pyramids, maybe Airren just takes Engineering Genius and Frugality or something like that. He then at his next turn can either take Boudica or Hammurabi, depending on what I will go for a leader. And then if the Acropolis should come out, he has a nice leader, he has the Engineering Genius, and he could get the Acropolis. There are some culture leaders, there is Bach, and that just felt not too great for me. But it's definitely not for certain that the Acropolis will come out of the deck, and so I could maybe also just grab the Pyramids. However, I thought that I maybe will go for Hammurabi at my next turn, and potentially, or at least that could potentially be nice, and then Hammurabi with the Pyramids can maybe be fine, especially if I should maybe manage to get an H1 government going with the revolution with Hammurabi, but otherwise it maybe can also be not the ideal combination. And so at the end I just grabbed the Engineering Genius, leaving myself open for the Acropolis. And I at the end went for this decision, but I think also just grabbing the Pyramids could be perfectly fine here. Airren will go for the Frugality and the Pyramids, so he is committing to the Pyramids and he goes for the Frugality. First of all, that means that Boudica won't be in the discard spot, so she could potentially still be an option for him at the next turn, and he also makes it that only 3 new cards are revealed, so the chance that the Acropolis is revealed is less than 50% now. And as you can see, the Acropolis is also indeed not revealed. At my turn, I then made the decision to go for Hammurabi. I think it could be fine to go for Boudica. She definitely can also be a very solid leader, but then I would give Hammurabi for one civil action for Airren. He of course has the Pyramids now, so maybe that would not be an ideal combination, and maybe Boudica is also just a very nice leader for him, but I at the end just thought Hammurabi is still a very, very strong leader, and I at the end made a decision to go for him. I then build a mine, increase my population. I don't commit to any HA wonder yet, so if there's a strong H1 one coming down the road, I still have the freedom to take such a wonder, and then depending on what cards will be available for me the next turn, I can make the decision if I want to go for an HA wonder or not. I draw the medieval army tactic, and Airren will now go for Boudica, elects her and builds a mine. There is a resource development revealed at his next turn. He can even take the resource from Boudica and finish the pyramids immediately. At this turn I was very happy to see that the Machu Picchu is coming down the row, because I think that wonder could have quite a bit more potential than the ones that are on the row at the moment with Colosseum and Hanging Gardens, and so I just built a lab. I wasn't really willing to. I think it's not too great to take any of the cards on the first or the second row. Irrigation, of course, is a technology that I want to have at some point, especially with wanting to go for the Machu Picchu, but there will be 2 copies, and if I make sure that this one won't be discarded, I don't necessarily have to take it now, and instead I rather just took this Engineering Genius 1. I think that will be very strong for me. That allows me to very cheaply finish this Machu Picchu, get some nice economical boost going. In 2-player games there is 1 copy of Airren and Irrigation per player, so I'm guaranteed to get one of those copies of each of those technologies, and then the Machu Picchu has definitely quite some nice potential, and with both of those Engineering Geniuses I will be able to finish it quite cheaply. And then with my last civil action, of course, I could potentially take another yellow card, but I just felt like maybe I will have some better things to do with my civil actions at following turns, maybe also with the knights coming down the road, and with me having the medieval army tactic, and maybe I want to grab the Machu Picchu, maybe the irrigation if it is still there, and so I just went to the consumption already, something I don't like normally, and I have some additional civil actions with Hammurabi, but if I should go for the Machu Picchu, then I maybe also will have some nice food production, and then it's maybe not too bad to already go into consumption now. I draw the strategic territory, so maybe that could open up a door for Columbus potentially. Airren goes for Barbarossa and irrigation. Thanks to the additional science from Boudica, he can develop the irrigation immediately, and he immediately starts with getting some food production going, and together with Barbarossa that can of course be a nice combination. But with taking those 2 cards over, it also means that there will be some nice cards available for me. I definitely wanted to have the knights now that they are available for 1 civil action, and I have the medieval army tactic, and I also definitely wanted to get this breakthrough for 1 civil action. And then there is of course also a Forbidden City coming down the road, but I just felt the Machu Picchu has some very nice potential here, and with being my first wonder and with having Hammurabi, so that I hopefully will be able to go for the Machu Picchu and still be able to do some other nice stuff. And so I went for the Machu Picchu, and as I didn't want to grab any other cards that are on the row, I just built 2 stages already, and And I was also, while not taking the Forbidden City this turn, I was thinking about maybe going in for the next turn potentially. At the turn I can finish the Machu Picchu with using the Engineering Genius, and then I can grab the Forbidden City, and then maybe I have some nice economy and nice production going with the Machu Picchu, get an additional civil action and some ignored unhappy workers with the Forbidden City, and I thought that might potentially set myself up very nicely for H2 or in general for the game. And then I draw the reds. That can be a nice event to have knowledge about when having the Machu Picchu. However, Airren also goes for some food production, so maybe I can even potentially seed it into the deck. Airren seeds and opens the development of science. He reveals the Legion tactic, takes the urban growth, takes the printing press. We are on 2-player games, so printing press of course have quite some potential, even though there's no Shakespeare there, but there is Anthony Gaudi, and cultural production overall is more important. Airren didn't commit to the second lab yet, with going for food production first at the turn before, and so now he goes for 1 printing press. That's the Code of Laws stay on 2 civil actions for me. And at my turn, I don't go for the Code of Laws, interestingly. Instead, I go for the Monarchy, and I think it might be the correct choice here. First of all, I will finish the Machu Picchu this turn, and I will go for the Forbidden City, and with that, both I and Airren have a wonder that gives an additional civil action, and with that, maybe getting another additional civil action from the Code of Laws is not that important, and it might be more important to maybe get the Monarchy, get additional military action, and also the additional urban building limit. Airren, for example, it could be nice for him to get some additional printing presses going at some point, maybe, and then together with the pyramids, the Monarchy would allow him to already beat 6 civil actions, and maybe he could also set up a nice revolution. So I thought the Monarchy might be the more important card here than the Code of Laws. And so I took it. I also have enough science thanks to the development of science and can develop it immediately thanks to the breakthrough. I still have a bit of science left after going for it. And then I just finished the Machu Picchu and went for the Forbidden City. And with the Forbidden City I will be at 6 civil actions. I still can maybe potentially go for justice system or something like that later on. And as soon as I get some iron production going, I think I could end up having quite a nice position. I draw the border conflict and the raid. Of course, I could potentially have thought about seeding the reds, but with having the Machu Picchu, that can just backfire quite heavily, and also it will take quite a while until the deck will be flipped, so I didn't want to commit to that. Airren will still go for the Code of Laws, increases his population with the frugality, increases his population again, and then just uses the urban growth to build another printing press that is just enough to get him out of corruption, and now at the next turn he will have just enough resources to finish the pyramids. At my turn I will increase my population, and then the question is what do I want to do, and I made a decision to go for Gutenberg here. And no, there's also Michelangelo. Maybe with the Machu Picchu I can get some value out of him, but I already have taken another wonder. I don't really have a lot of happy faces at the moment, so I didn't want to go for him that much, and so instead I went for Gutenberg. And my idea was that first of all this turn I will already elect him, and I will already start with building a third lab. Hopefully with the ignored unhappy workers from the Forbidden City I will be able to support it. Also there's some time left until the event deck will be flipped, so I was hoping that that is not too greedy to commit to a third lab, and that the additional science will actually be quite helpful for me. And then I was eyeing this copy of Alchemy that is coming down the row. Airren could of course take it away, but he has already committed to printing presses, and there are some other cards coming down the row like Airren, and so I thought that while he maybe could potentially take the Alchemy away, it would be somewhat costly for him. And even if he takes it away, there is still a second copy coming at some point, so even then Gutenberg will do some stuff eventually. But I was hoping that it will get this copy of Alchemy, then I can use Gutenberg again at the next turn, and then I can just maybe go for Airren, get this production going, and just along the way set up some nice labs with Gutenberg. I think that's maybe the ideal way to use them, because then it's not too bad to delay the upgrades with having to do some other important stuff as well, and also with having some lab going, so I definitely could be nicely prepared for Bach later on. Now I could get some very nice cheap alchemy upgrades with Gutenberg, and then who knows, if I should get a chance to get Bach and Opera, I can maybe then go for Bach and maybe upgrade one or two of those labs, so that might have some nice potential, and I thought Gutenberg might be a very nice choice here. Then I also took this Ridgeland. That means that a copy of Airren will be available for one civil action for Airren, but at the end was willing to do this because the Ridgeland might potentially make it possible to go for some upgrades quicker. And then I also took this copy of Frugality. Also I have to spend my civil action somehow. I will spend 2 of them now to go for 2 stages of the Forbidden City already, but I have to spend my other civil action somehow. I could of course just take the Airren already, but I just felt better to take those yellow cards. Of course it gives the Airren for 1 civil action to Airren, but I will be guaranteed to get one of the other copies of Airren. One of the copies of Airren at the next turn, as the irrigation will be there. Also maybe the breakthrough, it could be a bit problematic to get all of this stuff going, but but I still was willing to play my turn like that, and I thought those 2 yellow cards might be quite useful for me. And then I said I will build 2 stages of the Forbidden City. I could potentially finish the Forbidden City at the next turn, but with the event deck not being flipped and with there being no danger of a rebellion, I think it might be better to start the iron production with the Machu Picchu at the next turn. Airren accedes and opens the development of settlement, goes for the Code of Laws this turn, finishes the pyramids, and interestingly, it just goes for the Great Wall here. I was a little bit surprised by that, because now it means that he will miss out on the iron, that maybe could potentially limit his option later on, especially with only 1 copy of coal being available in 2-player games. On the other hand, of course, having the Great Wall and Barbarossa can be a nice combination. The Happy Face could also potentially be useful in case he wants to go for maybe a culture play, so and then maybe it could also help him defend himself. He has the Legion tactic, so the Great Wall could be nice, but it also will take him a lot of resources. He misses out on the iron, which could potentially limit his options. I mean, he would not have enough science to go for it already at the next turn, so I mean, with Boudica he might potentially have the science. He goes for the Great Wall here. I was a little bit surprised about it, but it definitely has some potential and could work out nicely for him. Then it's my turn. I go for this copy of Airren. That means that the other one will be discarded. Now that Airren gave me this chance, I wanted to make it that he is stuck on bronze mines, at least for now. And then, as said, I will go for one upgrade to the Airren. One upgrade without using the rich land is enough to get me out of corruption. And then there are some cards that I definitely want to take. First of all, of course, the irrigation. Also, Airren didn't take the alchemy. And now I have the chance to grab the alchemy with Gutenberg, and I would have liked it very much to also be able to grab the breakthrough, but I just don't have the hand space for that, and so sadly instead I have to use my civil action in last civil action in a different way, and I do it with just going for another upgrade with the rich land, going up to 7 resource production. At the next turn I can maybe start developing the alchemy, finish the Forbidden City. I even have enough resource to finish Forbidden City and go for even one more mine upgrade, and then I was hoping that I can just get some nice economy going. Also I will reveal the medieval army tactic now. Airren of course could take the knights, and it could still potentially be nice, but he has the Great Wall, so maybe he also just wants to stay on the legion tactic, and I just wanted to use the military action now while still being H1, and I also was happy to have this tactic in the knights, so in case Airren starts the military I have a nice response to that. I draw some strength events, and Airren does not seed. Interestingly takes the cultural heritage for 3 civil actions, but getting some additional science might be quite important for him, so it might be the correct move. With him still needing a government form at some point, he also takes the breakthrough, so he grabs all of the science that he can, and then elects Barbarossa. Will you do 2 activations immediately, has no legion tactic going, is at 5 strength, and with the last civil action he will then increase his population. Now it is my turn. I still didn't really have an interest in pushing, because at the moment I'm the weakest. I have a lot of nice stuff to do to upgrade my economy, so I don't really want to invest into any military yet, and I'm not really that nicely prepared for either colonies or strength events, so I just was happy that the event deck is still not flipped yet, and that I have a bit more time. This turn I want to go for the alchemy with Gutenberg. I finished the Forbidden City. I go for one iron upgrade, and then I also will just spend a lot of civil actions on a science yellow card. I think that will just be very helpful for me to have the revolutionary idea, so that I have the necessary science to do all of the stuff, and I think the other cards that are available from H1 I just don't really need. I mean, bread and circuses could potentially be interesting for Pierre, but then the question is, how do I want to spend my other civil actions? I could potentially increase my population one time, but no, I just felt this revolutionary idea is a nice card for myself, and might also be a nice card for Airren, which could make it even easier for him to get a government form going as soon as one will be available for him. Then I draw my first H2 cards, a colony, the civil unrest, and also the infiltrate. Airren will take the rich land, takes the bread and circuses, plays the cultural heritage, and then builds 2 stages of the Great Wall to get out of corruption. At the next turn he's just enough resource to finish that wonder. This turn I will actually start pushing with seeding the civil unrest. Of course it's still true that I have a lot of nice stuff to do, but I also thought the civil unrest might have some potential. Airren has of course taken the bread and circus at the moment. He will maybe also get one happy face from the Great Wall soon, but maybe he also wants to go for potentially coal. I won't deny the coal, it's also definitely something I thought about, and I will talk about it in a minute. But also potentially if Airren gets a government form, maybe he will delay the bread and circuses by a bit, and then maybe the civil unrest has some potential. And no, so I at the end was willing to seed here, also just to get a little bit of knowledge about the next event deck now that I have a fine event to seed. And then the development of agriculture is revealed. I will do one Gutenberg activation this turn, and then I will also just go for the irrigation. I think it's just a nice way to spend all of the civil actions now to get some of those upgrades going, so that I will have a lot of freedom in the following turns, maybe being able to even grab Bach for 3 civil actions if he should be available, for example, or maybe to just also do some other nice stuff, maybe even also having the option to deny a government form. So I will go for the irrigation, I will go for one upgrade, another upgrade. I could have potentially done something different, maybe also increasing my population, and with increasing my population, then I could maybe also have the chance to grab the coal without having corruption. So it could be an idea to deny the coal here, and it definitely could be nice for Airren. It's still relatively early, and he has enough resource and science, thanks to the rich land, enough resources to go for an upgrade immediately at the next turn. But it also will be quite costly, and if he invests some science into the coal, at least it maybe means that he can't go for a government form that quickly. And also, I will at least make sure that the coal stays in 3 civil actions, so if he goes for the coal, he maybe has to miss out on some of those yellow cards, maybe can't do all of the stuff that he wants to do, and so I was fine at the end to leave him the coal. I didn't want to pay 3 civil actions just to deny it from him, but I think it's definitely something to at least consider here in this situation. And then I will increase my population with the frugality. I will increase my population again. The civil unrest is coming at some point, but for the moment I still have a little bit of time to prepare for that. And then I will take the swordsman. I will have a lot of productions. I would much rather prefer to have the rifleman, but the thing is, in 2-player games there is only 1 copy of rifleman available. Airren is on swordsman. I think he might be willing to pay quite a lot of civil actions for the rifleman, especially with having the Great Wall, and maybe he also could potentially consider going for some military pressure at some point with having the Great Wall, and then it could just be nice in case I miss out on a rifleman to have the swordsman available as an alternative, in case I had a draw tactic where the swordsmen are needed. And like this, I have both of my farm upgrades already. I've increased my population already quite a bunch of times, and so I was still happy about my position. And now I was hoping that maybe at some point I might have a chance to get Bach, and that maybe Airren doesn't get a government form soon. That, of course, would be ideal for me. I draw 2 colonization cards, so that could be nice. The terrorism also could be interesting, because at the moment Airren has a little bit of a lead in the culture, but it's relatively close, and it also will maybe depend a lot on whether he seeds, and now the event deck will flip, so if I see the terrorism now, it will take quite a while until it will be revealed. The development of planning is revealed, and the options for that are the development of markets, warfare, and trade routes. Airren makes the decision to take the development of markets. He interestingly will make the decision to go for Robespierre. Barbarossa isn't really doing that much for him at the moment. He doesn't really have enough happy faces. I mean, maybe if he finishes the Great Wall or goes for Bread and Circus, he could get some more activations in, but maybe he just doesn't want to go for more warriors. Maybe rather wants to start drawing some more cards, and he will also go for Robespierre and for the coal. So he is willing to pay 3 civil actions for that, and it is definitely not bad for him. He gets some resource production up still relatively early. But I also was not too unhappy about it. Robespierre definitely makes sense in that sense that he now, even with going for the coal, can still go for a government form as soon as one will be available. That might definitely give him a big boost for his economy. On the other hand, in order to go for that, he had to skip all of those yellow cards, and now he has committed to a leader already, meaning that now I will be guaranteed to get Bach if I want to. So, I was generally happy about all of this, but of course Airren will get some coal mines now, might be able to get a lot of civil actions if he gets a government form, and that, of course, could put him also in quite a strong position. Now it is my turn. I didn't want to see the terrorism because it just takes too long until it will be revealed, and I don't want to hold back on something like Bach, for example, just to win the terrorism. So I skip seeding again, I go for another Gutenberg activation, and then this turn I go for a little bit of denial. Not only denial, the rifleman definitely also will be useful for myself, but I was willing to also take it to make sure that Airren won't have access to it. And then also the next one will be only a denial. I will take the Republic away. There's of course the chance that a constitutional monarchy will be revealed for Airren immediately, but it just felt very bad giving Airren the Republic. He will be able to go for that for only 2 signs, will then have 9 civil actions, and that could just give him a very, very big boost. With the Conmon, at least he has to pay a little bit more signs, at least he's only at 8 civil actions. Of course, he has then additional military actions, so that might also be very fine for him, but no. Maybe if the Conmon isn't revealed immediately, I at least delayed a little bit how quickly Airren can get a government form going, and the Republic would just be so cheap, and with that I at the end was willing to go for the denial here. And then I made an interesting decision for my last civil action, because I'm still not out of corruption. Maybe I could also just say I will have corruption. I could potentially think about just increasing my population and building a warrior. Maybe I will need a warrior anyway for the medieval army tactic, but it would also mean committing to another warrior, missing out on a draw, and who knows if I will really need it. I don't have drawn an H2 tactic yet. I also considered developing the rifleman and building a rifleman. That would also get me out of corruption, would also increase my strength already. I could then even go for an upgrade to rifleman if I want to, and that would then put me at even more strength if I would like to do that, and would even be enough to overtake Airren in strength. But then again, I don't have drawn a tactic yet, and I would commit to the rifleman without knowing if I will really need them. I would miss out on some draws, decreasing the chance that I will get a tactic, so I didn't really like that much. So I even considered maybe just increasing my population and having corruption, but then I think building the warrior should be better. But at the end I came up with an interesting solution that maybe is also a little bit greedy, but I thought maybe I can actually afford it in this situation. And even though I have the Machu Picchu going, I went for a fourth mine here, going up to 10 resource production. That is of course now quite a lot of resource production, but with the Machu Picchu I have some very nice food productions. I was hoping that I still have enough population, and then I was just hoping that I can support this mine and that I can just increase my resource production even more without having any really bad consequences for me. And that will get me out of corruption, will improve my economy even more. Airren of course will get some coal mines going, but even if he upgrades all 3 of them, I now will still have the better resource production. And I even had a relatively clear plan for the next turn, because I was eyeing the Statue of Liberty that is coming down the road. Of course I have an H1 government, so that's maybe not ideal with the statue, but maybe also have a shot at getting an H3 government form at some point, and then with potentially taking and finishing the statue, I can at the next turn very nicely get out of corruption. I even have just enough resources left to also go for one more lab upgrade with Gutenberg, and then I even get some additional yellow tokens that will help me for the civil unrest that is coming. And with the additional yellow tokens, I think then I definitely have enough populations to support this mine, and I will have enough population to maybe go for some operas with Bach, to still have enough population, then to go for some military with the resource production. Hopefully I will be able to build all of those things very nicely, and no, so at the end I made a decision to go for this mine. But it's certainly also a little bit greedy to commit to population here. Maybe I will indeed need it elsewhere, but I thought, especially if I should get a chance to get a statue, that I then have a very nice shot at just being able to afford this mine without too many drawbacks. I keep the colonization cards in the colony. I draw even the autonomous territory now, as well as the refugees, Airren seats, and the Dark Ages are revealed. Sadly, that means that I will lose some science, and with the Dark Ages that of course also makes a lot more sense to go for the coal and to spend some science somehow, and now I lose 2 more science than Airren. Airren then this turn will finish the Great Wall, it goes up to 8 strength, and then he will just grab the railroad together with the coal mines. That will mean that he will be at a lot of resource production at some point, and of course might also help him with the strength. Now he has the Great Wall and the railroads. In case I run away with the culture leader, then maybe he has a nice way to potentially also punish me in strength with already having some additional strength from the wonders. As you can see, Bach is now revealed on the row, but I wasn't too happy about the position that he is now, and that will cause a little bit of a problem for me at my next turn. But first of all, I will seed the autonomous territory into the deck. That is of course a little bit risky, and especially because, I mean, I have 2 colonization cards in hand. It could potentially be that Airren goes for the navigation, but I thought he doesn't have the most science. Maybe he rather will spend his science, use the science for something else. And then I have only the 2 colonization cards, but at least I have maybe also the medieval army tactic. Maybe I can use the tactic to help me with colonizing. And one reason why I also wanted to push is that I will fix my unhappiness issues this turn, make sure that I don't have any unhappy workers, and then Airren has a lot of unhappiness. And I don't know the H2 event from Airren, but maybe he will seed. I won't overtake Airren in strength this turn. Maybe he will then push, because he's hoping for strength event, and then there could be the chance that he gets hit by a relatively big civil unrest. So I thought also to just move the deck forward and maybe make it that Airren gets potentially hit by that. I just wanted to seed, and I was hoping that I maybe have a nice shot to get the autonomous territory. Also, I have the monarchy with 6 and 3 military, civil and military actions at the moment. As soon as Airren maybe gets a government form with Robespierre, he might have a lot of civil and military actions anyway, and then the autonomous territory might also give a bigger boost to me than it potentially gives for Airren. And there is luckily for me no strength event, instead just the knowledge of the ancients. And then this turn, first of all, I want to use Gutenberg one more time, so that I have now upgraded all of my labs fully. And now there's a bit of an issue, because as I said in the turn before, it could be quite nice to just go for the Statue of Liberty. I think the yellow tokens might actually be quite useful for me here. But if I want to take and finish the statue and get out of corruption like that, then I have not enough civil actions left to go for Bach. and I would miss out on him. So I was a bit unhappy that Bach is not just at the spot where I have to pay 2 to take him, but also can't wait for the next turn to take him. So I thought about if maybe we just want to go for Bach, but without finishing the statue I can't easily get out of corruption. I could of course still take the statue, finish it at the next turn, maybe that could all be fine, but I just didn't like it too much, especially with the civil unrest coming. I kinda want to have no unhappy worker this turn. I could then maybe build a religion, upgrade it later with Bach, but it just didn't feel too great all of those turns, and at the end I made a decision actually to not go for Bach here, and instead I went for Antoni Gaudi. Gaudi is maybe not as great as Bach, and if Bach maybe would just be at a position where James Watt is, I would just go for the statue, finish it, and go for Bach at the next turn. But I think Gaudi can also be a very fine leader. I can maybe build one religion, then I can already save some science when I go for the opera. There's also a copy of journalism left, there's a copy of team sports left, there's Pierre at the end, so I think Gaudi also definitely has some potential. And and while he's maybe not as nice as Bach, as great as Bach, I still thought he can do some nice stuff here in the situation. And if I can't go for Bach and finish the statue this turn, I made a decision then to just go for Antoni Gaudi instead. I even elect him because Gutenberg has completed his work now. And then I will take and finish the statue. That just gets me out of corruption, and now I have a really nice yellow bank, a lot of free population, and hopefully with also having a nice resource production I will be able to do some nice stuff with all of this. I keep the colony in the 2 colonization cards. I even draw another colonization card, so that might be nice, especially for the colony that is already coming. And there's even another colony coming, the vast territory. And sadly not the civil unrest, and with the vast territory and Airren winning that, sadly he will fix his happy faces now. But at least with all of the colonization cards I can at least make him pay. I have only 1 warrior, so with bidding 7 Airren also knows now that I have all of those 3 defense cards. And at least I can make him pay, so that's also something. He has to send a whole legion tactic and 2 H1 colonization cards. And in this turn, as you can see, also the constitutional monarchy is available for him. He will be able to do a revolution. That means he stays without any warriors, any units for now. Is even at 0 strength at the moment. Takes the cavalryman. It is already the 2nd copy, meaning that I won't have a chance to get a cavalryman and maybe have to commit to the knights if I want to leave myself open to potential tactics where I need cavalry units. And then Airren will go for increasing his population 1 time and is able to increase his mine and to upgrade his mines 2 times. It's now 9 resource production. That's definitely not bad. He will be able to finish the statue at some point, and maybe with being willing to send all of those units away, he has even a nice tactic where he doesn't need any warriors. Maybe fortifications, so then he maybe wouldn't have taken the cavalryman, so maybe something like mobile artillery could potentially be the case, or he will rebuild those warriors at some point. But of course I have taken away the rifleman, so Airren, of course it would be ideal for him if he has a tactic where he doesn't need any infantry units. And now it's my turn, and with having all of those colonization cards, I was now again willing to push, also because I thought it could maybe be nice if those colonies are revealed relatively quickly. Because I have all of those colonization cards in hand, I will also go for the strategy to make sure that I can keep those in hand very easily. And Airren at the moment doesn't even have a unit. Maybe he even seeds at the next turn, and if a colony is revealed I could then get it for free basically, or only for a warrior. But even if he maybe at the next turn doesn't see it, or if no colony is revealed and he starts building some units, maybe he doesn't have a tactic immediately, and with me having all of those colonization cards, maybe Airren then can't bid that much, because maybe he just builds 1 unit or something at the next turn, and then maybe I have a chance to win some of those colonies very cheaply, and just for that I really wanted to push. I didn't want to push Inhabited or Prosperity, because both would help with the population, and I at the moment, with having gone for the statue, don't need any help for the population, while Airren, who also has a lot of workers now with the vast, I thought maybe it could still be a bit nicer for him, because if he put some units into the military, and then so the next area of the Yellow Bank, when the age will end, he has only those 2 irrigations. I at least have irrigation with Machu Picchu. But I think we both have a nice population, but I just didn't want to put anything in there which maybe could help him even further with that, and rather see the developed territory, which of course also with the yellow token helps a little bit with the population. Then this turn I said I will go for the strategy. At the next turn, there will definitely be a copy of Opera available for me. Then I can maybe start some culture production, and with having the strategy, I thought it will help me a lot with the strength. I didn't have drawn a tactic yet, and if I leave it to Airren, and if he has maybe a nice tactic and also gets the railroad, maybe things could get a little bit dangerous, and having the strategy to defend myself could be quite nice. Also, it makes it a little easier for me to keep all of those defense cards in hand, allows it that I can build some units with still drawing some cards. And I definitely want to develop the knights here, because the age might end before my next turn. It allows me to go for the medieval army tactic, which could also help me to potentially win one of those colonies that is coming, having this tactic available. And of course, in case I still draw an age 2 tactic where I need the knights, then it could, on some cavalry units, then it could be bad having skipped the knights, especially with only there being one copy of tanks. Then I also go for the strategy, develop it. I will build one religion, so that at the next turn, in case I want to go for the opera, that I have already a bigger science discount. It also increases my culture reduction by 2 already this turn. And then I will also build another knight, because I have still one free military action that I can use without missing on a draw. And also with building the knight, I will still have corruption, but at least I will only lose 1 resource and 1 food. I have a lot of food anyway, so that's not as bad, and I might need a knight anyway. Puts me at 10 strength, so maybe it also forces Airren a little bit to start investing into some units immediately, which again of course also could be bad, considering that there are some colonies coming, but I just mainly wanted to spend 1 more military action and making sure that I at least only lose 1 resource. Of course I miss out on some nice cards like the breakthrough and also some other yellow cards, but I just felt like the strategy could be very important for me to make sure that I stay somewhat safe with not having a tactic yet. And so at the end I just didn't find the space to take this breakthrough. I still draw 3 cards, and I was very happy about my draw here, because now I finally have a tactic, the classic army, and with having the rifleman, it is also a tactic that I will be able to use. And I even draw war over territory, who knows, maybe if Airren isn't careful I could even go for war, but he will have the railroad, and if he, with this big resource production, he just will always make sure that he has at least enough, that he at least can threaten enough strength. He then increases population even more times, so as we can see, he really has a lot of population, and then he builds an additional printing press, increasing his science production, using the urban growth, develops the bread and circuses so that he's potentially prepared for Pierre, and then he will develop the cavalryman and builds one. So he has now a unit, but only 1, and if he doesn't have a lot of colonization cards, it could still mean that if I reveal a colony now, I could potentially win it for very cheap, so I definitely wanted to push at my next turn. And I still didn't really want to push any of those cards that could potentially help with the population, and instead rather I just ceded a wealthy territory. And sadly no colony is revealed, so I don't have the chance to maybe win one of those yet. Instead the arms industry, which gives 4 additional resources for Airren and 2 for me. We both gain those 2 resources thanks to having the warriors technology. And Airren has the cavalryman developed, so you get some more resource out of that. This turn I thought about a turn where I go for journalism, develop it, build one, and just take the opera. And the advantage of this turn would be that I first of all have both of those urban buildings and would be nicely prepared for Gaudi with that play, and also I deny both of those cards for Airren, so he doesn't have the chance to get the opera, doesn't have the chance to get the journalism. I mean, he has printing presses already, but I take all of those culture producing urban buildings away, and maybe I can then, also having the strategy in the classic army now, just make sure that I can defend myself, and I also deny some nice culture options from Airren. And of course I also get the journalisms going, get some more science production immediately, maybe making it more easily possible that I can afford an H3 government form, which would be nice with the Statue of Liberty. However, there was one big problem, and first of all, it's maybe somewhat costly. I would have corruption, but I would at least only have 2 corruption, but I would have corruption, but I would, after my turn, of course, with having all of those farms and mines, would still have a lot of production, and I would then have, I think, no blue tokens left at the end of my turn. And I was of course still hoping for a colony, but the problem is if Airren cedes, which I was kind of hoping for in order to maybe win a colony for cheap, but then it could be very annoying if the autonomous territory is revealed, because I would have no blue tokens left in my bank, meaning I would have to lose some food or resources when I win the colony. That would just be a little bit annoying. and because of that reason, and maybe also because of some other reasons, I at the end made a decision to not go for the journalism and the opera. And instead I made a decision to only go for an opera this turn, because then I can more easily get out of corruption and just play my turn a little bit more smoothly. Then of course the question is, which copy of opera I do want to go for. I could still take the right one, because then Airren, again, I take the opera away from him, the journalism is maybe not that nice for him anyway, and I take some culture options away from him. But Airren at the next turn can't really go for the opera anyway. Could of course take it, but in H3 maybe it will be nice for him, but in H3 there is not really any theater synergy available. There's also no Hollywood, so it's maybe not that great to build those operas, and also maybe there will just be also some early movies available. So I made a decision to take the left copy of the opera, because that means that if Airren doesn't deny it, I might still have a shot at getting the journalisms at the next turn. So I take this copy of opera, I will develop it, I will build one going up to 8 culture reduction, and then I will increase my population 2 times and build a warrior to get out of corruption going up to 13 strength. And then maybe I was hoping that was still hoping that I might have the chance to win a colony very cheaply, and with spending more resources and food, I also can now win the autonomous territory without it being a bit awkward because of my blue token situation. I sadly miss out on the justice system, especially if I win the autonomous territory. The additional blue tokens could be nice. On the other hand, I would spend some science that I maybe also could need for potential H3 government form, which could be nice with the statue, and I just also didn't find the time to grab that one at this turn. I was very happy to see that I have even another colonization card available now, so now I was really hoping that I have good chances to win one of those colonies, or hopefully even both, and Airren was also willing to see it. I was very happy to see that, because now the autonomous territory is revealed. Airren has only Discovery Man. Now I basically know how many defense cards he has available, and that is 1, but that still allows me to win this colony quite cheaply. I could just send a warrior on 3 cards, but I rather wanted to keep more cards in hand and send away 1 knight and 2 cards. I could of course even send an army in 1, but I still would have to need to send 1 card, and so it just didn't feel really worth it. I send a knight here and 2 colonization cards. I still have 2 cards in hand, which hopefully will give me still some decent chances to win the other colony that is coming, with knowing that Airren has only 1 colonization card available. I took the additional science from the autonomous territory because I felt like I might need that. I could use that quite nicely, especially as said, with maybe hoping to get an H3 government form at some point. Airren then goes for another farm upgrade, finishes the railroad, that puts him at more strength than me, and also he's now 12 resource production, so that's definitely not bad. And then he interestingly just takes the Eiffel Tower. He doesn't even take the opera, but as said, there's not really a lot of synergy. There might be early movies anyway, and the Eiffel Tower has of course the advantage that he can get some culture production without needing any population. The happy face might even be useful, so in case he still wants to go for some military, which he maybe has to consider, because if he doesn't get an early nice H3 leader, then maybe I just have some advantages in case it is a pure culture game. But in case he wants to go for some military, the Eiffel Tower with the happy face will still be useful, allowing him maybe to put more workers into the military. So I think it might be a nice decision to go for the Eiffel Tower. I, on the other hand, was also happy that I will get a journalism, and at least Airren doesn't have any culture buildings in hand yet. Maybe that could potentially limit his culture potential. Now it is my turn. I am weaker than Airren, but Airren was quite weak for a while, so I was hoping that there's no big strength event coming, and I knew that Airren, at least before he drew those H3 cards, had only 1 colonization card in hand, so I still was hoping that I maybe have good chances to win another colony even for cheap, and so I just wanted to see it, and now I was willing to see the inhabited territory because I didn't really want to push a strength event with having a culture leader and just hoping to defend myself at the moment. And there's indeed the other colony revealed, the developed territory. Airren is willing to bid 6, so he was probably now willing to bid a warrior, the cavalryman, and his colonization card now that he has this warrior. And but I'm still again able to win it for knight and 2 colonization cards. Again, I could consider sending an army, maybe keeping 1 colonization card, but I, as said, would still have to send 1 colonization card, and with that I just thought it is maybe not worth it. I have now gotten quite a lot of additional signs from those 2 colonies, 9 additional signs, so that is quite nice. This turn I will make again some nice use out of Antoni Gaudi with going for journalisms. I can build one immediately, increasing my science production, and then there are this turn 2 very strong blue technologies in the row. So you can see the civil service and the engineering both have a lot of potential. I even considered just going for both of them, but then I can't go for the journalism and it didn't feel too great. I could maybe take the engineering, as this is a technology that maybe we both can really use quite nicely, but Airren might deny the civil service, and that could just give me a very nice boost. And I mean, I've won the developed territory now, so maybe I don't need the blue tokens as much, but the blue tokens with my big production could still be nice to have from the civil service. It gives me a big boost immediately. Maybe I don't need to save the resource from the engineering that much, and so I went for the civil service. That also makes it that I can get out of corruption immediately. I took the team sports because I don't have a happy face solution technology in hand yet. I can develop it very cheaply with Antoni Gaudi, and there's also Pierre in the game, so maybe I can just keep Gaudi for some more turns and then go for Pierre at the end of H3. That could be quite nice. And with my last civil action, I just increased my population. Build the knight. I need to get stronger, otherwise with having sent all of those colonization cards, Airren definitely might try an aggression, so I want to get stronger. And with having the classic arming tactic, I was willing to skip those cannons. Then I draw my first H3 cards, another tactic that could potentially be nice to have, but for that I would need the rockets, and then also the impact of strength and the impact of architecture. Airren seats, and the freedom of movement is revealed. He uses that to put a warrior into the lab. Maybe that was the reason why he built this warrior. Even that could be a very nice play by him, because as we can see now, he has the mobile artillery, probably had this already at the turn before, so he didn't really need this warrior. But with knowing that the freedom of movement is coming, he could build one for basically for free with a military action, and now he can put it somewhere else, basically having put it there without having to use a civil action. So if that was his intention, I think it was his intention, then I think that was a very nice move from him to build this warrior, and now he will put it into the philosophy and didn't have to pay any civil actions for that. And then he will take the engineering genius. That will be nice to use in the Eiffel Tower. He also takes the cannons, takes Steve Jobs interestingly, but I mean Robespierre is not doing that much at the moment apart from giving the military action, so getting an early replacement is of course quite nice. He goes for Steve Jobs and also for the scientific method, getting an activation out of Steve Jobs immediately and also helping him with the happy faces. Goes for 2 upgrades and is now at 9 science production. But I also was happy with the cards that I will be able to get. First of all, I was willing to seed here. Actually not, I was not willing to seed, but I think it could be fine to seed. I'm the strongest, but on the other hand, all of those cards are not completely safe. The impact of architecture, of course I can hope that this one will be safe, but there's a lot of things might still happen in H3, so at the end I skipped the politics phase, but I think it could be fine to also maybe seed it into the deck. But there are also 2 colonies coming. I don't have any colonization cards in hand. Maybe I was hoping that I could potentially draw some, but I think it could maybe also be fine to just seed the impact of architecture here. And then this turn I was happy that I have the chance to get the internet. There's also a red cross. I have a lot of food, but I want to use the food to maybe get some more urban buildings going or something like that ideally. And the internet, there is good, of course, now still United Nations and Manhattan Project left, but I think I have some very nice potential for an internet. With also getting the engineering, I can build those urban buildings very cheaply, and if I even should get Pierre, then I can maybe also go for some arenas, and then the internet could be quite big. So I'm thought that I maybe can start to set myself up in a way that Airren can't really compete in a peaceful way with having the internet and being able to build all of those buildings that cheaply. Maybe that could mean that he has to go for the military, and he has some potential, but I also was hoping that I might hopefully also be relatively nicely prepared for the military with the classic army tactic. And no, but I definitely wanted to get this internet, I wanted to get the engineering, and then I was also willing to use the engineering immediately to go for journalism. Thanks to the revolution already, I still have enough science to potentially go for an H3 government format the next turn. And then I also wanted to take this copy of reserves, because while I have strong production, it could still be nice to have some additional resources in hand in case, as said, Airren might maybe want to try something with the military, and then it could be important to maybe have some additional resources available. And so I took the reserves with my last civil action. I draw some cards. The shock troops tactic could be interesting in case I don't get those rockets. Could maybe still allow me to go for an H3 tactic. The impact of happiness could maybe also be nice, especially if I maybe go for some arenas with Pierre at some point. Airren seeds, the immigration is revealed, but no one loses any unhappy workers. He then will increase his population, finishes the Eiffel Tower, going up to 8 culture reduction, takes the rockets away, maybe wants to limit my options for the tactics, but also uses it for himself, and uses it with using Steve Jobs, then uses the wave of nationalism, even though it only costs him 1 resource, it's still enough to get him out of corruption. And he's now at 19 strength, has a lot of production, so I have to be a little bit careful. And this turn I was willing to see the impact of architecture, and the event revealed is the inhabited territory. I was not really willing to bid that much for it, because it's already relatively late and maybe the yellow tokens are not needed that much for both of us. Airren is able to win it, but at least he has only expensive units available, so he still has to, at least in the cavalryman, has to sacrifice 5 resources, and I was hoping that that will be fine for me. And this turn I have finally enough science to go for an H3 government form. Of course I had to think about if I can afford it, but I was hoping that I indeed can afford it, and with the Statue of Liberty it will just give me a very nice boost and will give me a very nice amount of civil actions. Now after developing it I will be at 11 civil actions, that is of course very nice, also at 20 culture production now. But of course I have to also be a bit concerned about my military, and so I made sure to deny some military actions here. The patriotism of course also is useful for myself with some additional resource, but the military theory is mainly meant as a denial, because Airren now doesn't have a really nice way to get more than 4 military actions, and it will make it a lot harder for him to go for a really big war, especially because he still needs to build a lot of units in order to go for that. So I think that is an important denial here. Of course he could still get something like communism and fundamentalism, but even then he would only beat 5 military actions, so I was hoping that this denial will make it a lot harder for him to go for a big military push. And with going for those denials, I then also was willing to go for the democracy. I still have some nice science production. I was still hoping that if Airren tries something with the military, that I will be able to defend myself relatively nicely. And no, so I went for the democracy, and now I will just increase my population sometimes, build a knight, making sure to get a bit stronger. I didn't really expect any bad strength events to come, but it could still be nice. It also gets me out of corruption. And then I will take the urban growth, and I also made a decision to develop the team sports. I went for an early H3 leader, so I thought maybe there's a chance that an iconoclasm is coming, and then it could maybe be bad to not develop that. With Anthony Gaudi, especially now that I went for Steve Jobs, I can know for certain that I have maybe a shot to get Pierre if I want to get him. Unless he's revealed very late, and with that I wanted to have the team sports, and now I can still develop it with the discount of Anthony Gaudi, and as I didn't have that much else to do, I mean I could increase my population, so that definitely is an alternative, but I at the end just made sure to go for those very cheap team sports. I draw the impact of science, that could be nice to have. Also a colonization card, so maybe I can at least bid a little bit more for the wealthy territory, but that one isn't revealed yet. Instead a popularization of science, and I even get 1 more science out of that than Airren. Airren takes the satellites, takes the reserves, takes the multimedia, will develop that, score some science with as culture with Steve Jobs, and then we'll go for 1 upgrade, increasing his science production and his culture production, gets out of corruption with increasing his population, so there's a lot of free population, and then also just builds a cavalryman in order to again go up to 19 strength, and maybe also to use 1 of his free military actions. Or the 1 free military action, he doesn't know, the other ones are of course not free. And now, with getting some culture from Steve Jobs, he will now at the end of his turn still be at 90 culture, so he isn't really that much behind, but of course I have a lot bigger production per turn, and I have the potential of a big internet, so and also all of those civil actions, so Airren, it might be difficult for him to catch up peacefully, but he is still definitely not far behind, and maybe can just also prepare for some nice impacts or something like that. At my turn I seeded the impact of happiness, because now there's Pierre available, and I will go for some team sports. Airren at the moment has only 4 happy faces, so hopefully I will have maybe the chance to so that it is a nice impact for me. And now the wealthy territory is revealed. I was willing to only bid a knight, is not willing to send away too much, and Airren again is able to win it, but it again means at least he has to pay a somewhat costly unit. I mean, it's a nice deal maybe for the cavalryman, but it also means that in case he wants to go for some military, he has to rebuild his cavalryman again, which could potentially again be a bit problematic with the slow military actions. This turn I definitely wanted to go for Pierre because the age might end before my next turn and I want to get his Olympic Games going. And here I had to really think about if I want to force to end the age or not after my turn, but I can force it that after Airren's turn the age will end, and then I can make sure that there isn't an additional turn. Airren is only having 4 military actions, can't really go for war this turn, but maybe if I don't force to end the age, he can maybe set himself up for an additional war. And maybe it could be the best thing to do. I have a culture lead, I would still be able to get the internet, but it's maybe also not that ideal to just grab all of those cards. I think maybe I should have just done that, but I thought about how dangerous is it actually that Airren will be able to go for a war that I can't defend at the end, and there are some dangers. But I also really thought, yeah, it still looks very unlikely that Airren gets a very big war going and a very big swing against me. And so I made the decision to not force the age to end, and instead made some nice things for myself. First of all, I definitely also need to develop the rifleman so that I'm not in danger of losing that to the end of the age. Then I take the multimedia, I build one arena for free with the urban growth, and with having another urban building tower, I can now develop the multimedia for only 5 signs. After that I will switch to Pierre. I go for some upgrades to rifleman, revealing the classic army tactic, also revealing that before I potentially lose it. I'm now at 23 strength, and then I will go for some multimedia upgrades and increase my population and even build another arena. The problem for Airren is that he has only 4 military actions, and in case he wants to go for a really big war, that will be problematic for him. I will let the Manhattan Project stay now in 2 civil actions, meaning that that one will be very expensive for him to grab, and I think it might not be the best way for him to go for war, even though that could of course be a way to get some strength going without needing too many military actions. And yeah, there are definitely ways how Airren can build up some strength, but yeah, but those ways are maybe those have some problems for him, and maybe will hopefully guarantee me that I can defend myself very nicely. Because I will now take at least 2 cards from the row, that means that Airren, there will be 6 cards left at his turn. And I think in order for him to go for a really nice war, he needs the fundamentalism at his next turn, because he needs more military actions immediately. And then if he gets the fundamentalism, he can build a lot of units, and maybe if he has the mechanized army tactic, which would maybe be required to really make him very threatening, and I have already drawn the other copy, so there would only be 1 copy left that he needs to have, then he has to use all of those military actions, and then at the next turn he could potentially set himself up to go for a war with having fundamentalism and 2 mechanized army tactics, and one of them with air forces. That could be quite dangerous, but if he will develop the fundamentalism at the next turn, in order to then also be able to go for Air Force at the following turn, he needs the revolutionary idea. Meaning that he needs to take the fundamentalism from the row and the revolutionary idea. But that means that he can't take any other cards that aren't in a discard spot, because otherwise the age will end, making it very likely that I might have access to tanks, I might have access to, for example, the military build-up. And with those cards, I should be able to set up a nice enough defense. It could of course be that one of those will be in the last card of the deck. No, but even if I at the end should lose to a war, if Airren prolongs the game, I get another very, very big production going. I get the Olympic Games, and Airren would have to declare the war against the Olympic Games. And I thought even then I should be able to win this game, but maybe it would just be the safer play to just take a lot of cards and make sure that Airren doesn't get an additional turn. But I was really taking a look at his turn, and I thought no, that I will also be fine with prolonging the game, and so I went for that. And if I just take a lot of cards, maybe there's somehow a way with maybe some nice impacts how Airren could potentially win it in a peaceful way. maybe getting a nice United Nations for 20 points with a strong impact. So maybe there could be a chance, but no. Maybe I should have also just forced to end the game to end here. Maybe that was an unnecessary risk to not do it, but I was hoping that I should also be fine with prolonging the game. I get another colonization card, also the impact of population, which might be a fine impact. Airren plays the reserves for resources, takes the revolutionary idea. As you can see, the fundamentalism is indeed available for him, and as you can also see, he will also go for that one, developing it with Steve Jobs, and he now, as you can see, will indeed set up for some military, and I think that might also be his best shot. Because in a peaceful way, he, especially now that I have just built some nice stuff and have even a better internet like this, he just needs to try something with the military, otherwise he shouldn't have any ways to catch up peacefully. And he indeed uses all of his military actions, and he also indeed has the mechanized army tactics, so he has gotten some necessary pieces with the fundamentalism, with the revolutionary idea, but the bad news for him is that neither tanks or the military buildup are the last card of the deck, and with that I will be able to set myself enough nicely to hopefully defend this war. And also, of course, I can declare the Olympic Games now, so Airren has to declare the war against the Olympic Games. I will also seed the impact of population into the deck. The Independence Declaration is revealed. Sadly, I'll have to lose the developed territory, but it's also not too bad. I will increase my population, play the patriotism, I will take the tanks, develop the tanks, go for some upgrades, reveal the shock groups tactic, being at 39 strength now, so that I'm also not in any danger of an aggression. I will still get 3 draws like that, and then I just take the military build-up. I also have to take the Air Force, so that those are not discarded, and then I don't have a lot else to do, so I just take the endowment, only meant as a denial, so that Airren doesn't have a way to get 6 culture from that. And in the next turn I have now just enough resources to go for 3 more tanks and 1 more Air Force, and with that I have a bigger strength potential than what Airren can do if he goes for 1 more cavalryman and 1 more Air Force. So I was at this point very confident that that will all be enough. Either I can finish the internet, or if Airren goes for war, maybe just because he has to try it, then he has to declare it against the Olympic Games and he won't be able to win it. Also, I draw the impact of culture now, another nice impact, so now things are looking very nice for me. H4 starts, and Airren is indeed going for war, for hybrid war. The hybrid war is not really bad for me in the sense that I will lose some happy faces, but maybe Airren, of course, he sees what strength potential I have, and maybe that even if he has the impact of culture, might just be the better decision, just because it is maybe a better distraction war. Now he can lose the war and prevent me from finishing the internet, but not as much culture will be stolen, so maybe that is his that is here the advantage of the hybrid war, but it's of course still not that great for him. He will disrupt me, he will prevent me from finishing the internet, but he will still lose the war. He has to declare it against the Olympic Games, so no, that is still not that great for him. Then it is my turn. I of course see the impact of culture into the deck. The impact of agriculture is revealed, giving me +2 against Airren. And then I will go for the Air Forces, play the reserves, the military build-up. I destroy some stuff, mainly some mines, because I have the impact of architecture in there, but also 1 lab, because I didn't want to destroy my impact of harmony that much. And so I build 1 Air Force. I can also build 3 tanks, and with that I'm at 81 strength, and I will be able to win the war. I take the urban growth, just taking some cards, playing the endowment, using all of my civil actions, and then that's the end of my turn. Airren will lose 4 culture, but he prevented me from finishing the internet. He then will increase his population, builds a religion, upgrades 1 multimedia, develops 1 technology, also goes for a computer upgrade, now makes sure that he has more science, maybe hoping that I potentially could have seeded the impact of science into the deck, but at this point I think there's not really a lot of hope left for him before the final impacts. He will be quite a lot of culture behind. There are 4 impacts, and I don't know if there's a combination of impacts that would allow him to catch up. The First impact is the impact of happiness, especially because I have knowledge about most of those impacts. The impact of happiness was seeded by me, it gives us the same amount of points. Impact of culture was seeded by me, it gives me plus 10. The impact of population was seeded by me, it gives me plus 4 against Airren. And then the last impact was also seeded by me, actually, okay. I didn't have that in mind. I mean, I had it in mind when playing the game, but yeah, of course I even have seeded all of the impacts, so that allows me at the end to win this game. Yeah, so that was the last game of this World Championship stage. I think things went quite nicely for me at the beginning when I got the Machu Picchu and the Engineering Genius 1. I think that allowed me to go for a nice start. Otherwise, with not having gone for the pyramids, I maybe would have to commit to either Hanging Gardens or Colosseum, or maybe be a bit at a risk of not being able to use my civil actions and invest my resources nicely. But with getting the Machu Picchu and then also the Forbidden City and also the monarchy, I just had a very nice foundation to build my economy on. I also think Gutenberg did a very nice job with being able to get all of those labs going. And I committed to a Robespierre very early. That allowed me to know that I will be able to go for a culture leader. I then even built a fourth mine, finished the Statue of Liberty. With that I was hoping that I have enough population to support a fourth mine, and I think that also worked out. Only now at the end I had to destroy those mines again. And then I just had a nice economy, was able to build some nice stuff. Also was of course lucky to maybe draw the classic army tactic in the right time. Also to having the shock troops at the end was quite nice and made it easier for me to threaten enough defense. But without having this tactic, I then maybe would have just ended the age, which I maybe should have done anyway, because there would have been maybe some risks if, for example, military build-up or the tanks stay in the last card of the deck. Then maybe I could potentially lose the war, but even then the gap at the end is quite big now, so even if Airren wins the war instead of loses it, I still probably would not have enough to win it, but maybe just ending the age would have just been a little bit safer. But also with prolonging it, I just didn't see any way how Airren can still win it. Either he tries something peaceful, but then I am even better prepared, or he tries something with the military, but then he has to go against the Olympic Games and against my impacts, and I will get another turn of production. So I think both ways were relatively safe, but maybe I should have just ended the age. Maybe that was a little bit safer. And so at the end all of those things went quite nicely for me. And I'm happy that I have won also this last game of the stage of the World Championship. And now that this last game is finished, we can also take a look at the final standings. And with winning this last two-player game, I stay of course in the first position, and I have now a result of 26 points at the end. So overall I'm very happy about my performance. Of course I'm very happy that I will be able to move on to the finals. I think 26 points is a very nice result, and I'm especially happy about how my 2 and 3 player games went. I was able to win all of the 2 player games and almost all of the 3 player games. I'm not too happy about my 4 player performance, but maybe I can try to make that better in the next stage. But that was generally something I think also in the stages before. It was often the case that my 4 player games were maybe the weakest. Interestingly, in the current international championship season, for example, the 4 player games are actually going quite nicely, so I don't know if that is indicating that my 4 player games are a bit weaker than the other player counts at the moment, or if it is just a coincidence. But I would definitely didn't have the greatest 4 player performance in this tournament, so I maybe have to be a bit careful about that in the next stage. And then of course also Himmelstosh will be able to make it to the next stage. That was also already clear at the start of this video. He has 20 points. I think it's very nice. He played quite a strong stage, and maybe also at already the beginning of the stage was maybe the player where it maybe was the biggest surprise that he made it in this last upper bracket stage. But he has definitely shown that he is more than worthy to play in this stage, and will now also make it to the finals. So a very nice performance by him with some very strong games. For Airren, it sadly won't be enough to make it to the finals, so one very big player and maybe also one of the favorites to win the whole tournament is now out. He still had a very strong tournament, especially in the early stages. He really, he was the player that was undefeated for the longest, had always some very strong results. This stage for him, it was a little bit unfortunate. He shared in the Discord that he was traveling for a while, and of course that can take some focus away, and especially for him, he is normally, I think, a player who really looks at a lot of details, and maybe if that goes away and if he has a lot of is just traveling and maybe doesn't have that much time, that of course can take something away. So that's of course a bit unfortunate for him that that just was the time when he also played in this stage. He still made a very nice comeback and made it quite close again before the 3-player game where he then sadly lost. So he still made a very nice performance, played a strong tournament, but sadly now he won't be able to continue. And Binky, for him it also was already clear at the beginning of this video that he won't be able to make it, but of course also for him it is true that he played a very strong tournament, but at this point there are just some strong players have to be eliminated, and now there will only be the top 5 left. But Binky has still had a very nice performance and is also in generally in quite a nice form at the moment. And now that the stage has finished, I can of course also share that when I not won this 3-player game with only 1 point, it was of course on purpose, so that I score more points in the Nostradamus contest, so that I score lower than 27 points. Of course I'm just joking, but there is this Nostradamus contest for those of you who don't know about that, where we do some predictions about which player will move on to the next stage and some stuff. And there was also the question how many points will have the winner of the upper bracket group have, and I choose the option that a player will have less than 27 points, so that worked out quite nicely for me with being at 26 now. So in that sense it was at the end nice that I wasn't able to win this game. But of course, it might maybe backfire potentially for the clicker rating. But at least I have won now this 2-player game against Airren and generally had a nice performance. So maybe I could have a shot at the first position in the next clicker update. Alright, so I hope you are very hyped for the finals of this tournament. Now the top 5 players will play it out. Actually, a lot of games will be played, 14 games per player, so that's quite a lot. I will definitely try my best to cover all of them. I still have quite some stuff going on also in real life at the moment, but I will try my best to cover all of the games. But it will also mean that I won't be able to make it to show my games of the International or Intermezzo Championship at the moment, because showing all of those 14 games is already as much as 2 normal international championship seasons would be, so that's just quite a lot, and I just won't have the time to also do those other tournaments in addition to the World Championship. But you still will have 14 games with some very interesting opponents that you can look forward to. We can also take maybe a quick look at the other lower bracket groups to see which will be the opponents. Of course, we know that Himmelstosh will be one of the opponents. In the lower bracket group 1, we can see that Swin, who you already know from stage 4 from this tournament, was also able to make it to the final, and he is generally in great form at the moment, is now I think already in the 4th position in the clicker rating, if I'm not mistaken, is in great form, and will be very interesting to see him in the finals. Sadly in this group there were some timeouts, so that is of course always a bit annoying. Then there in the lower bracket group we can see that there Machu Picchu was able to win it, and I think that was quite a strong group with Palino, Wozniacki and a 440. But what Machu Picchu, with a very convincing performance, winning all of his 2-player games, winning the 2 4-player games, being at 31 points, so he will also be one of the players in the finals, and then the last opponent in the finals will be Chengisip. And this group, it was quite close between Chengisip and Daniel. If Daniel would have made it, it would have been nice, because then both Swin and Daniel, so 2 opponents that I already met in the groups before, would have made it to the finals. But in this game, Chengisip at the end was able to make it, and so there will definitely be some very strong opponents that you can see in the finals. So I hope you're looking forward to that. And I hope it was also an interesting last game of this stage for you to watch, and then have a nice time, and see you in the next video for the first final games. So no games from me have been finished yet, but I think the first games might finish relatively soon, so maybe in a week or so you can expect to see the first finished game from the final. And yeah, with that, have a nice time and see you in the next video.